In this movie, I'm going to show you how to complete the bristle brush tutorial. Now, you should already have some experience with the artistic brushes, so you should be aware of how to use Illustrator's drawing mode called Draw Inside, and we're going to be utilizing that drawing mode in this tutorial as well. So let's do that first, so then we can set up the bristle brush to the correct specifications. So again, I have a set of directions that I've put here to the right that you can reference if you need to. But as you recall, we have to select the format first. Then you can go into the draw inside mode. You'll see brackets appear around the format, and if you deselect, the brush that you choose won't be placed onto the format. It'll be placed onto the brush that you choose. So I'm going to choose the brush, and I'm also going to go to the can of brushes that's here on the panel bar. Remember, if you don't see the can of brushes here on the panel bar, you can find that under Window, Brushes. Either way, when I open up this can of brushes, I need to go into the bristle brush library. So I'm going to go here to the bristle brush, to the books that are leaning on a shelf here, and I'm going to open up the bristle brush library. Now this one's just a little bit different from the last one, because even though I'm in the bristle brush library, you'll see that this gives me the names of different types of brushes, but it doesn't really give me the choice to set some of these options here, like opacity or density or length. So I'm going to show you how you can find that. So when I've selected on the brush that I'm looking for, and which in this case is the filbert, you'll see that back in the can of brushes that were here, so I'm going to pull that one out because we need that one as well. It's going to highlight the brush that is the filbert. Okay, so I'm going to double click on this filbert, and then you'll see if I double click on this gives me a new panel that opens up and is allowing me to set different aspects of this brush. So I'm going to set the brush at a 3, so you'll see that that's already chosen for me, and you can see I have a 3 there anyway, but that's already chosen for me, 3. I want to set the paint opacity at 75. Well, look at that, that's already set for me too. I want to set the length at 35, so I'm going to push this slider down to 35, or I'm going to highlight this number and change it to 35, and I want to set the density at 3. So I'm going to set this. And what these numbers are affecting, and I'll just explain, the opacity is how see-through or how opaque the paint is. The thickness of the bristles is like each hair that's on the brush. Is it like the hair from, a boar, like a wild pig? That would be a thick hair. Or is it the hair from like a sable? That would be a very thin hair. The density of the brush is how many brushes are in the end of this brush, how thickness, the density, how many of them are on there, and then the length of each brush. The longer the brush, the floppier the brush. The shorter the brush, the more controlled the brush. Anyway, those are the aspects that are here. Once I've set them to what the directions say, I can click OK. It also asks me to use a red color, so I'm going to select the stroke attribute so that it's on the top of the toolbar. Then I can use my color picker over here to select red. Now when we're using the bristle brushes, what you're going to notice is that each of these brushes have some transparency affiliated with them. So when you're working in here, what I'm going to ask you to try to do is to make multiple strokes in some area of the box. So some area of the box, you have to click and let go, and then click and let go, and then click and let go, and you'll see that you build up density. So I'm going to build up the opacity of that. In other places, you just want to have a single stroke so that you can show that that had the transparency that you expected it to have. All right, so I want some area of my format where I have gone over it a couple times by clicking and letting go. If I just click and drag around in a circle a whole bunch of times, I still only have one application of the paint. So you have to let go of the click and then re-click and drag over it again a little bit more. So I'm going to leave Draw Inside mode. That's Shift and the letter D, and then I can move on to the next brush, which is a Filbert 10. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to click on the box. I'm going to enter Draw Inside mode. I see the brackets. I'm deselecting, so I'm just painting inside of this box, and then I'm looking for the Filbert 10. So I am here, I see that I have the filbert, and I'm going to just pull this open a little bit more. I'm going to click on that same brush there, which was my filibert, so I'm going to double click on that. I'm going to set this as a 10, or I'm going to highlight this number as a 10. I need the opacity at 25%, so that paint's going to be very see-through, so I'm just going to highlight this and set that at 25%. I need the length of 275. That's going to be a very floppy brush, so I'm going to set that at 275. And I need the density at 90, and it's going to have a lot of bristles on it, so a lot of bristles on a very floppy brush with see-through paint is what I'm asking this to do. When I say OK, I also want red for this, so this is active, so I can just pick red. That's kind of orangey, so let me pick a little bit more of something that's red. And here's my brush. I have those attributes set, so I'm going to paint. And you'll see that this is very floppy, right? When I let go, I've only painted inside of that format. But remember, I want to make multiple applications in some area of this. So I'm going to go over it a few times so that I build that up so that I have some spot where that paint is not see-through, okay? I'm done with this one. I'm going to leave draw inside mode. Let's do one more. So I'm going to do shift and the letter D to leave draw inside mode. I'm going to select this next format. I'm going to enter draw inside mode. I see brackets. I'm going to deselect. Now I'm looking for this, which was the angle. So I can see that. Let me just pull this over a little bit. I see the angle. I'm going to click on that here in my regular brush library. I'm looking for a 3mm. It should highlight it, so that's this one. So I'm going to double click on that. That's my 3mm. And I'm looking for an opacity of 75. That's set for me. I want a length of 50. I'm going to change that number to a 50. I want a thickness of 10, so that's going to be a very thin brush here, or thin bristles on my brush that's there. And it doesn't specify the density, so I'm just going to leave it at whatever that brush was set at, since it doesn't specify that there. When I say OK, I want to pick an orange color, so that's somewhere in here for orange. Pick the brush on the toolbar, and I'm going to be dragging around in here. Remember, I want multiple passes in some area, so that means I have to go back and make them click and let go of my click so that I have some area of this format that's been built up so that the paint becomes opaque, and other areas where the paint is just see-through. When I'm finished with that format, shift and the letter D to move on to the next format. All of these have a description of what you are supposed to be doing in each of those. So just follow those descriptions by choosing the name of your brush from the brush library, like angle again. It would highlight angle in here and then double click on it here in the regular brush library to change the specifications of the brush. This one wants to now be a 10. So I think it's easier to just sort of highlight that and drag over it, and then you'll notice that that brush will be a lot thicker. All right, good luck.